need to go back to the drawing board with it
Right.
and redo all the components. In order for DayZ to be successful, it has to effectively follow an MMO architecture.
Okay,
So
yep.
that's what we've done. We've gone right back to the basics of it. Even our programmers within the company who aren't working on DayZ, I think they're kind of blown away with how much has been ripped out of, like, the other engine.
Right.
How much has been completely created from scratch.
Okay, I'm getting some other questions here. First of all, is it okay if I create this live stream into a VOD for Twitch and for YouTube so that people
fine.
can reference to it? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Because I'm sure that any information you give us is going to get picked apart and put right onto Reddit, as
Yep.
everything does. Let me just quickly see if there's any. If anybody in chat has any questions for Rocket, then please do throw them at us, and we'll see what we can get done before Rocket has to go.
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Oh, you're not in New Zealand right now, are you?
No,
No, I
I'm
didn't
in
think
Prague
so.
at the moment.
Right.
I was in New Zealand for like maybe 2 weeks for Christmas and my brother's wedding.
Oh, well, congratulations to him then.
Yeah.
The virologist gets married.
That's a good question about how far away will
Right.
grass render.
Oh, so about how far away will grass render?
I'm trying to think this. It's forced by server, I think.
Right.
I'm not sure. It's kind of hard to tell because of the changes in the way the rendering works. I haven't noticed it as much. Yeah, I'm not sure actually. I'd have to check that one. It's a good point.
Yeah, I think I know that there's some issues with other games that have come out in recent past that have. So I'm not gonna name names, but just you see the.
Threads too.
Yeah.
I read people's concerns with recent games that have been released with that. We're aware of it, but we haven't done anything about it.
Right.
We'll have to look at it, and it's going to be a big issue. I'm not sure what we'll do about it. But it is, all I can say is it's going to be an issue, and hopefully it's one we can solve.
So I know that dogs are still on the agenda. Is that something that you're hoping to launch with the first part of Standalone, or is that something that you're also going to be working towards as an eventual?
Yeah, I'd say we'd hope it's in there. I doubt it will be in there for when you guys are, when you guys come to first play it. It will be very basic, probably only a couple of weapons, because we want to redo basically everything. So it will start off very simply and build up. But I would imagine that the dogs will be in for the first paid release.
Right. And I imagine that
pretty soon after. But they won't be a milestone for it. So if they're in there, they'll be in there. It's kind of a nice to have. If they make it in, they make it in. If not, they'll come in at the nearest update. So we won't hold the release for dogs.
Right. And are you thinking that you might take the direction of more of a civilian, more civilian weapons and sort of move away from the military grade ones? Or are you thinking that you're going to sort of keep the balance that you had when DayZ mod first launched?
Yes, it's a lot more civilian, even in terms of our approach with animations and things like that. So you don't salute, you wave, and so there's a lot of focus on that. We want to make it feel a lot more immersive all around. And as we're bringing weapons in, they're going to come under a strict review in terms of how they're made, what do they look like, and all that kind of stuff. So the attachment system becomes quite important there. So you're probably going to see a lot less weapons, but the weapons that are there are more customizable and are better designed, better quality models, the crossbows being completely redone, all that kind of stuff.
What about the sounds for the weapons? Are you going to be doing any modifications to the sounds?
We've got a plan to. The guy who did, I'm really enjoyed working with the guy who did a lot of sounds for the mod. So we're going to work with him, but to be honest, we haven't even started that.
Okay.
Admittedly, it's not. I guess we're trying to start with all the hard stuff, get all the hard stuff out of the way now, because once we know that that's done, then it's all good. Someone just asked about bows and arrows. I'm really into bows and arrows, but they have some massive technical. So those technical challenges would have to be overcome.
Right. Well, that's understandable. I personally like the idea of bows and arrows as well because obviously, if it's something that you can craft yourself, then it's potentially an infinite resource weapon, much like melee. So that'd be great to see.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm just gonna scroll up just one sec. Right. So, is there going to be any like improvement on performance, like frame rate? Do you think that you'll be able to see a definite improvement on the same computer running DayZ mod versus DayZ standalone?
I'd like to add what I consider a qualified guess. So I can only add a qualified guess because we just don't know. Because there's a lot of stuff we're adding, but there's a tremendous amount of stuff we're removing. So I know that if you can run the mod, you're going to be able to run the game. But as to whether there'll be a performance improvement, I believe that it will be a smoother experience. So there'll be less up and down spikes. And from a service perspective, we already know it's going to be lighter in terms of its data footprint and things like that. Put a lot of time into doing, I think the Linux server is going to be the direction we run, but I can't confirm that yet. So, at the moment we're still using Windows, but we know that in the past it's compiled for Linux. So it was only the additional DLLs that we loaded that caused a problem there, and that's not an issue anymore. So, yeah, I think it will be better and smoother, but we can only confirm that later on.
Right. I'm going to kind of go back to some of the questions in chat that people are posing that I personally am more interested in as well. Food spawn. Right now, it feels like it's relatively easy to keep yourself satiated. Is there going to be any nerfing to that?
I guess all I can say is forget everything you know about spawning and all those mechanics, DayZ, the mod, because at the moment you grab equipment and you pick up loot in piles. That's no longer the case. Everything is an individual item and the standalone, and you'll have to scavenge for this stuff inside cupboards, under beds, inside the wreckage of a vehicle, all those kinds of things. So finding gear is kind of totally different. And I think that it's going to be much more challenging in that sense. In some ways, DayZ is going to be easy to play because there's less glitches. And let's face it, the glitches were often what killed players. But I think to counter that is that there's a much more depth how you actually survive in the world. Right.
I think that's going to be the biggest appeal is all the depth to everything that is going to be added in. It's already such a complex game, and all these different little additions are going to make it even more compelling. Another question, one second. People were wanting to know if there's going to be a spray that you could possibly find to put on clothing to sort of disinfect them. Is anything, do you see something like that coming in at all?
The plans have got in place. Obviously nothing's implemented on that yet. It's still quite an early mechanic, but the design that's there at the moment is more to use something that's kind of multi-purpose, like iodine or something. So some kind of disinfectant, probably, that you'll wash the clothes if you want to wear them.
Right.
And you want to make sure. Same with water, that you'll either boil the water for whatever period of time that you're comfortable with. And obviously the longer you boil it, the more chance that you'll destroy anything in it, such as cholera.
Right.
And that's why we want to add the passing of waste, like defecating or peeing to the game. I mean, it sounds really comical, but to be honest, when we've tried it out, I really think it's going to be quite compelling.
That's awesome.
The gameplay.
That actually makes me think then about water that you find in the world. Is there going to be an issue with contaminated water? Are you going to have to, for example, boil
absolutely.
water? That's so cool.
Yeah, well, you don't have to. If you get desperate, you can drink the water, but it could end up causing you serious problems like cholera or something like that. And my brother, he's a virologist at New Zealand's equivalent of the CDC, the ESR, and he was saying to me that he thinks that it could actually provide some really interesting research output, because for the first time a game will actually be able to map what people do in terms of reacting in a serious incident. Are they actually going to organise and make sure that their waste is put in particular areas, or are they going to infect all the waterways? And then how do people react when they notice other people? Like, there might be a server that has a serious cholera outbreak.
Right.
What do people do? It happens.
I loved your interview that you had. I can't remember who was interviewing you, but you mentioned the first ever outbreak, naturally occurring outbreak that happened in one of the servers, and that story just made me so excited. I don't know if that's right for me to be so excited by that, but just that freezing rain could cause an entire server to become infected, and then all of those players disconnect and go to other servers and infect more people. And within a few hours, you had thousands of infected player accounts. Like, that was incredibly awesome. I'm sorry, I think that was so cool. So if there's going to be more of that, that'd be really neat to see how disease can spread in the game.
Yeah, and I think this is the crux of it. It's that organic context. I just don't, and I think that a lot of people, a lot of publishers, they go for the safe ground, which is make a story, package the experience, and I guess DayZ is going in that complete opposite direction. We just want to build that framework. We believe that once that framework's there, we'll see these amazing organic things come out. And maybe that's why, I think that DayZ has a lot to provide streamers and needs streamers as well as YouTubers and content creators, because without them, I think DayZ loses some of its potency. If you actually look at, particularly what the mod does, is not necessarily anything particularly exciting with it, but it's how people interact and the context it provides that provides the power.
That is, see, and I think that's sort of like the next question that would come from that would be that, like, the humanity system in the game doesn't necessarily currently reflect player interaction. So unless you start in the game with other friends on TeamSpeak, chances are right now you're going to feel aggressive towards everyone else on the map. So is there any plans for a humanity system that is, I guess, a little bit more natural? Like, for example, someone had said in chat that you could potentially shake hands with someone, and then maybe that action puts them on your squad. Like, somehow you're able to interact with them, like you're able to feel that you're safe with them. Is there anything like that in the works?
I'd say that I will spend the next 20 years trying to make the right humanity. But that's not to say that I don't think it's worthwhile trying to do. I think that it's going to take a long time for us to figure out what works. And the only way we can figure out how that's going to work is by trying something, seeing how it goes with millions of people playing it, and then dealing with it and changing it and revising it. I think that humanity is going to become a little less important in DayZ Standalone.
Right.
Because of the high level of character customization. You'll get a pretty good idea about someone if they're coming over to you in hunting gear with a hunting knife covered in blood with some damaged stuff. You're going to be pretty sure. And if you see someone who's walking around in barefoot and you've got nice boots and they draw their weapon on you, you're probably going to start thinking, I probably don't want to hang around this guy. He's going to want my boots. So it's my suspicion that humanity's not going to be as important when we allow players to customize their characters. Someone who's wearing a high visibility jacket, running around mainly with medical supplies in their hands, that kind of stuff, is going to be a lot less of a threat than someone who's, got a Kevlar helmet on, goggles, combat gear. Yeah.
So that brings me back to another question that somebody had posed in chat. They wanted to know what kind of clothing you'll spawn with when you first come into the game. Is it going to be sort of low, I guess in a way low level clothing that would be high visibility, and you have to discover other clothing in the map that would be, better protection from cold or camouflage? What do you start with?
Yeah, at the moment it is the hoodie and jeans and like gym shoes, athletic shoes.
Okay.
But that's just because I think the hoodie looks so damn cool. Um,